It would be interesting if it weren't so consequential, but it is consequential. We've talked about since the Dobbs decision put an end to Roe v. Wade, how this became really a state-by-state issue at a new level. It always was, but at a new level. And basically America became divided on a moral issue of gravity that we hadn't really seen since, civil rights and slavery literally kind of divided state by state by state by state in the way. And now it seems that there's some evidence, at least, that this is stacking up along those lines with the transgender issue in particular. This is even beyond. You really don't see a whole lot of movement when it comes to the L, the G, or the B, or all the other adjectives or names or part of the acronym. But you are seeing it along the lines of the T. And so I think you're seeing really three things in particular that are worth paying attention to. And unfortunately, Ohio is kind of case in point. I mean, we're all excited that the legislature there did have the courage and the clarity and without hesitation went and overturned that veto. But the fact that Governor DeWine, an otherwise Republican, conservative, all the checks off all the boxes that are supposed to be, associated at least with some level of moral clarity on the gubernatorial level, vetoed this bill, which shouldn't have been controversial, which is basically similar to what has taken place in 20 some other states that otherwise share those values. That's something that I think points to what it means to be conservative. What is it that we're trying to conserve? This is a crisis, I think, in the conservative movement. I think there are people that are working very hard to define what conservative is and what it is that we're trying to define. Some of those people are defining it in ways that make others really uncomfortable because it sounds nationalist or gets accused of being nationalist or whatever. And I suspect in many cases it is, Christian nationalist in an inappropriate way. But the need to define right now what conservative actually is. Now, how this applies to us as Christians is not because we should identify primarily as conservative or primarily this or that or the other, but because we have a vision of history that involves a set of moral norms that were not constructed by society, but actually were built into the universe based on how God created the world. And a vision of the human condition, which includes both dignity and frailty. To paraphrase Blaise Pascal, who I think still has written the most compelling fundamental vision of what it means to be human, and to paraphrase him, humans as both the glory and the garbage of the universe. And this is why we can't just identify with a party. There has to be clarity about the human condition. Otherwise, conservative governor can't be clear on this one. When it comes to kids, when it comes to children, this is pointing to a larger crisis within the movement, which of course is a movement of movements, and there's all kinds of different, streams within this larger movement. This is an example of that, and I think we see that on other issues, but when you can't have the kind of moral clarity necessary on a fundamental kind of thing like this about protecting children, protecting children's minds, protecting children's bodies, protecting children's parents, to have the sort of purview of authority over their children as opposed to forces of the state. And all that was at work with this bill.